Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Crowd Church on this beautiful and slightly cooler Sunday evening, which is a relief for me. How are you all? It's great to have you on the live stream. It's great to have you on Catch Up, if that is how you're watching it. A little intro, if you've not encountered Crowd Church before, it is a church. And as you see, we are online. And each Sunday night, we have a live stream where we will have a talk and we will unpack it in Conversation Street. And this is very much trying to build a community. So we really want your participation. This is not like something you're just watching. Please do, if you're on the live stream, put your questions in the chat and we will talk about them afterwards. We welcome your questions throughout the week about anything you have seen on Crowd. This weekend, we've had the amazing privilege of meeting some of those that have engaged with Crowd over the months. And a number of people have come through, have found Crowd either on the live stream or joined the alpha that we have just run. And it's just a really good picture of how Crowd should work. So people with completely unconnected to each other all around the country, interested in finding out more about Christianity and Jesus, started an alpha course, and many of those have decided then to follow Jesus and get baptized. And so this weekend, we did an in-person Crowd event with the wonderful Sharon Edmundson and Matt Edmundson.
Hi, everybody.
Who are with me this evening. Absolutely delighted, because it's not like we've spent lots of quality time together in the last 48 hours. And we went down to Dorset and we gathered the Crowd community together and did some incredible baptisms on the beach, which was an awful lot of fun. Yeah, and so we try to build community is what the message is. This is the online bit, but please engage. And Sharon, what were your real take-homes from this weekend?
Oh, there's so many fantastic things about this weekend. I think I really love the fact that we've taken what was previously, like weeks ago, a group of strangers, but they've all got in common that they were seeking God and God's met with them in various ways and begun changing their lives. And this group has become like really well connected now. Yeah. And I think so just the different ages, different people from different parts of the country, but all like just hearing their stories of what God's done has just been incredible, I think.
Yeah. It has been amazing. What about you, Matt?
Oh, I loved it. I love the fact I didn't get sunburn. In fact, you can see behind me, thanks to modern technology, the beautiful people who all got baptized, slightly blurred out. But yeah, what a weekend. I mean, doing baptisms on the beach is always fun, right? And just meeting some really phenomenal people, making some new friends.
Yeah.
And just having a great old time and not getting sunburnt.
Well done.
And we played Foursquare.
Which we just hung out on the beach. We did baptisms. It was an absolute packed beach down in Dorset. Some friends and family came along to be part of it, and then we hung out on the beach and we had a great day. Yeah. And one of those getting baptized said, "It's like you're my family," and that was just such a beautiful comment about that whole journey that this group has come along. So if you like the sound of that, please do engage with all the stuff that we've got online. There's loads and loads of resources on Crowd, and please say hi in the chat. Say good evening. We'll follow this with a live lounge where we'll talk a little bit further. And I'm just being passed. Okay, who have we got? So we've got Sonia. Hello, and Kat and Aid and Richard.
Richard Ross, yeah.
Richard Knight. Hello, lovely to see you.
We've also got these ones.
And these ones as well. You can read those.
It's a complicated setup.
It is a complicated setup because we stream both horizontal and portrait. And so watching on portrait, we've got Warren, Clove U2B. Hi, Alicia, hello, and Miss Samantha. Good evening to you guys. A very warm welcome to you. Thanks for joining us on the live stream. Oh, Ellis is now in the comments as well. I've seen that. Hi, Ellis.
So great. This evening, we are carrying on our Jesus the Revolutionary series, which has been fantastic. It's been a look at Jesus challenging stereotypes and how Jesus is actually really quite radical.
Yeah.
And tonight, as you have seen, we have the wonderful Matthew Edmundson to bring us the next installment. So as he's talking, make notes, put your questions in the chat, and we will pick up, Sharon and I will pick up afterwards with some conversation around it. So Matt, welcome again, and
Thank
looking
you
forward to
very much.
hearing you.
Wow, you say that. We've just spent 7 hours together in a van.
Can you tell?
Will's going to go have a lie down now. So let me also, I just noticed here, Sudan says hi from India in the comments. So
Great.
very warm welcome to you wherever you are in the world. It's great to have you with us. So as Will said, we are carrying on our conversation about Jesus the Revolutionary. And I want to start by telling you a story. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story where I came across an elderly man. And he looked, for all intents and purposes, like he was having a heart attack. So the colour had drained out of him, out of his face. He was clammy, and he was gulping for air. And his wife was like properly frightened. So you knew that something was going on, right? And I saw all of this in about half a second as I was walking past. But the crazy thing was, I kept walking straight past him. I was in London. I was on the Underground. I was getting on one of those really long escalators that we have in the London Underground. It was hardly moving. I mean, the escalator was moving, but the people weren't really going up it. And I saw the problem. About halfway up was this elderly couple with a bunch of suitcases going up a step at a time and not moving very fast. And so this queue of people moaning behind them grew as they were being delayed by a few seconds, which, as we all know, is one of the big cardinal big city sins, isn't it? And so one by one, they started to barge past this couple and they were climbing over the suitcases. And because everyone's doing it, everyone does it. So by the time I get to the top of this escalator, the couple are actually off. They're standing to the side. They'd made it to the top. And a whole river of people just kept walking past them, including me. And what I cannot dress up, right, is the fact that I have had, over the years, some medical training. I hasten to use the word some. But I knew, right? I didn't guess. I knew what I was looking at. And I walked past. Why did I walk past? I walked past because everybody else was walking past. Now, the irony of this was at the time I was researching a story from the 1960s out of New York. And there was a young woman called Kitty. And Kitty was attacked and killed in the streets whilst, according to the newspapers, which aren't the most accurate, of reportings, but according to the newspapers, a crowd heard what had happened, but nobody came to help her. And so at the time, across the papers, New York was branded the unfriendliest city in the world. But the psychologists, right, who dug into this discovered it wasn't that New Yorkers were cruel. It was simply that we model our behavior on the people around us. So if nobody else is stepping in, then you're probably not going to step in either, even if it cuts clean across everything you believe. And there's a name for this in psychology. It's called the bystander effect. And that was me on the escalator. I walked past because everybody else was walking past. Maybe they knew something that I didn't. Maybe someone had checked on them already and they were okay. Maybe I was just imagining the whole thing. Maybe I was just a little bit worn out from climbing the stairs. Maybe it wasn't real. It's the bystander effect working in all its glory. I had all of the excuses going through and I kept walking. But, to make a long story short, God did eventually get through to me because I knew what I had seen and I also understood the bystander effect. So I had to turn around. I had to get involved and do what no one else was doing. But why did I do that? Why do we keep walking? Why do we keep taking our cues from what everyone else is doing, even when everyone else is wrong? And an interesting question to ask here is, what does it cost us when we do? And because we are in this series called Jesus the Revolutionary, My question is, what does Jesus have to say about it as well? And to spoil the ending slightly, we're going to find out that Jesus does not call us at all in any way to blend in. You and I are here to change the flavor of the room. It's something that we're going to get into. Now, most of the time, thank God, it's not life and death. It's not a guy having a heart attack. It's usually the group chats where someone forwards a meme and they're having a dig at you, you know, at the very thing that you believe, and you just hit the laughing emoji because it's the easiest thing to do, right? Or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's at work where everyone's talking about their weekend and you mention everything except for the one thing that actually shaped your life because you don't want to be that person, right? It's the same instinct. We read the room, we clock what's expected of us, and we file off any of the bits of us that don't fit in at that point, right? We learn this sort of conformity, I think, right from an early age in the school playground, you know, where we learn to color in the lines at school like everyone else. And it goes all the way through life. Conformity is key. Say the right things, like the right things, but whatever you do, do not make it weird, right? And it's good. I mean, it's not all a bad thing. It's called fitting in. And I think we're all pretty good experts at this, right? Brené Brown said it like this. She said, if I get to be me, I belong. But if I have to be like you, I fit in. Okay. But does it work? Does fitting in actually work? Well, yes, it does. I mean, obviously it does, at least up to a point, right? Because society is built on conformity. It's built on all of us fitting in. Fitting in feels safe. Nobody gets rejected for agreeing. Nobody gets left out for going along with it. It's not all bad. We all need to drive the same way, right, on the road. It really helps us as a society. We need a set of rules to follow. But there is a cost to fitting in all of the time. So take the idea, you would have heard of the word masking, this idea to mask, something that we've all done, right? Where we mask how we think or feel about something just to fit in. And the research here is actually really sobering when we look at it, because the more we mask, the more anxious, the more disconnected, the more lost you become, which is a modern way of describing, I think, something Jesus said 2,000 years ago. And in the Gospels, Jesus uses this analogy. It's from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 13, if you're reading along. Jesus said, you are the salt of the earth, okay? You are the salt of the earth. And salt is a really, really interesting analogy for Jesus here, because salt, when you think about it, has one job, and that's to not be like everything else. The moment salt tastes like everything around it, well, it's not really good salt anymore, is it? It's just a powder. And in fact, Jesus talks about this in the next verse, verse 13, he says, because you are the salt of the earth. And then he says, but if salt has lost its saltiness, or no, let me rephrase. If salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. That's kind of harsh, isn't it? So salt doesn't fit in. Salt changes the food that it touches. It preserves, and it's a flavor amplifier, okay? And here's something that I didn't know until studying this out for this talk, right? The word Jesus uses when he talks about losing its saltiness is moranthe. Now, I appreciate my Greek pronunciation is a bit pants. Moranthe. Jesus is making a pun here because this is the root word of our word moron, okay? So Jesus tells us that salt going flat and a person going dull, foolish, or flavorless is the same word as moronic. So lose your saltiness, and you don't just lose your seasoning, you start to become a moron in the biblical sense of the word. And at the time of Jesus, salt was, you obviously didn't buy it on the shelves at Tesco's. Salt was dug from around the Dead Sea, okay? And so when you dug out the salt, It was full of other minerals. So if you left the salt lying around and exposed, the salt itself would leach away, and you'd be left with this little pile of white powder that looked like salt, but didn't taste. The powder didn't do anything. And Jesus says salt like that just gets thrown out. It gets trampled onto the path, doesn't it? It's not good for anything, which, like I say, is a bit ouch. It's a bit of a stinger. And remember, okay, Jesus here is talking to his followers. So if you're a Christian, this is Jesus talking to you. But it is not Jesus saying, you've blown it and there's no way back, because the entire story of the gospel is people, if I can put it this way, people getting their saltiness back, right? So Peter, he denied knowing Jesus 3 times to people's faces. I mean, that's about as flavorless as you can get as a disciple. But Jesus restores him, and we know this from the stories in the gospel. So this is more of a warning about a direction, not a sentence on a person. But it's a real warning that if you keep dialing yourself down to fit in, then one day there's nothing left to taste. Now, let me be also clear, because I know what you might be thinking. Matt, are you telling me to go out and be that awkward, difficult person? Well, no, don't be the person that makes everything weird, because I don't think that's what Jesus is saying either. And the other thing I think we have to watch out for is that this doesn't become the Christian version of saying, just be yourself. The idea of be who you are is in some ways a fine idea, right? It's lovely in many ways. But the question that you've got to ask when you say things like that is, who decides who you are, right? And that question is a bit of a rabbit hole, let me tell you, because there's no easy answer. Now, Brené Brown and people might just tell you, just be you, just be more you. And you get to decide who you are, right? That's what we believe as a culture, as a society. But it's a lot more complicated than that, and definitely a lot more nuanced, because your taste, your gut, your sense of what matters are all shaped by your family, your friends, the videos you watched when you were 14, whether you like it or not. I will sit here and freely admit I was influenced by the A-Team and Knight Rider, right? I just was. And it's fine, right? So to find the real you underneath all of that, you fall into this, what psychologists call this sort of infinite regress of explanations that need other explanations to work. There's no clean, unconditioned you sort of sitting at the bottom waiting to be discovered, which is a bit awkward, if I'm honest with you, if just be yourself was the only plan. But Jesus didn't tell you to be more you. He didn't say, go find the real you. He talks about how you are the salt of the earth, like it's already true, like it's not a target you need to achieve. It feels like it's become an undeniable fact about those who follow him. Elsewhere in the Bible, it says that I knew you before I formed you in the womb, right? God says this in the Old Testament. I knew you before I formed you in the womb, before your family, before your culture, before a single person got to tell you who to be, you were known according to the Bible. There's an eternal version of you that culture did not create, and therefore culture cannot destroy, because it was given to you, endowed upon you by your creator. So the real you Jesus is talking about and ultimately tells you to stop hiding isn't your unfiltered opinions, which is normally what it is when we say just be more you, be more authentic, because I don't think it was ever about that. But it is about identity and purpose, the identity and purpose you were given. And that is meant to quietly but powerfully, I think, change your environment through preserving and purifying and amplifying the flavor of God's goodness to those around you. So you remember me, at the start I told you the story about being on an escalator and how close I came to walking by that couple. Well, It wasn't long after that, actually, God put me on the other side of the very same thing. So I'm driving down a busy road, and I am the first person, in essence, to come across a bad car crash. Okay. I pull up on the central reservation, the middle of the road for those outside the UK. And I go and look at the worst of the cars, and I need help, and I need help fast. And a little crowd of people is starting to gather around, right? Because everyone's watching, but nobody knows what to do. And I think every single one of them would have helped. They wanted to, but they were just standing there. So it's the bystander effect. Remember this, right? So I do the one thing that the research taught me to do. I don't shout, somebody help me. I point. And specifically, I point to a bloke, the biggest guy that I can see. I mean, he was huge, right? And I say, I need you to get into that car and behind this passenger, because I needed him to do that for me to carry on what I was doing. Okay. And something extraordinary happens to this chap who is kind of looking nervous by the side of the road, wants to get involved, doesn't know what to do. He springs into life and literally rips the door off the car. He says to me, do you mind if I rip the door off? I'm like, no, the car's wrecked. So he rips it. He turns into the hook. It was like unlike anything I'd seen, right? That's what he did. And it was super helpful. And here's the thing, right? He was always able to do that. He had that in him the whole time. He was just waiting for that one person to break the spell and tell him and call him and invite him into it. In other words, he needed salt to amplify the flavor. Okay. You are the salt of the earth. You don't have to rescue the room single-handed. You know, this isn't Michael Knight on a lone crusade to champion the cause of the innocent, etc. You don't need to win the room. You don't need a majority. You just have to be that grain of salt that amplifies flavor to all those around you. And so if we go back to Jesus and what he says and look at where Jesus lands this whole thing, okay, he goes on to say in verse 14 to 16 in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 5, he says, you are the light of the world, and a city on a hill cannot be hidden, okay? Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but they put it on a stand, and it gives light to all of those in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. It's an amazing verse. He talks about being salt and he talks about being light and not being hidden, but giving light to all those around you. Not so people can admire you, not so you change every room, but so that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. The whole point of the flavor you bring is that you make people curious, and curiosity that points straight past you to God. Okay. So you're not here to blend in. I think you are here to change the flavor of the room. You know, I have been friends with a beautiful couple. Sharon and I have been friends with a beautiful couple for almost 20 years. They serve the church in a massive way and have a real heart for the things of God. But you know what? The stuff they have had to go through is insane. But they are still the sweetest couple, just a real heart for God in spite of everything that they're going through. And if I'm honest, they are some of the most inspiring people that I know. I love to hang out with them, not because everything in their life is sorted, far from it, in fact, but because they bring this distinct flavor to every single room that they enter. And life didn't have to be perfect for them to do that, right? Far from it. God uses them right where they are. And I think the world is a much, much better place for it. I try and be like them. Quite often I get it wrong. And I know I can end up being the obnoxious person in the room rather than this distinct flavor that God's calling me to be. We're all learning, right? Like I said, Jesus never asked me to win the room. He never asked me to be the loudest person in the room. He never asked me to make everything awkward. He just asked me not to walk past, not to hide who he is inside me, because you and I are the salt. You and I are the light. He made us that a city on a hill cannot be hidden. Jesus said that because we never were meant to be hidden, just never meant to be. So this week, we're going to get into Conversation Street now, but this week, let me give you a challenge, right? Pick one conversation where you don't make yourself smaller to fit in, right? Let one true thing about you stay in the room. Your faith, your conviction, your kindness, whatever God has been doing in you, do not file it off. Let the salt stay and do its thing. And watch what happens when you do, because when people taste something genuinely different, they don't end up staring at you. They start asking about the one that you point to. So remember, as Christians, you are not here to blend in. You are here simply to change the flavor of the room. And on that bombshell, I'll hand back to my beautiful colleagues.
Thank you, Matt, very much. Man. Just to get my head around. I'm going to give Sharon a couple of moments to think of something to draw out of that. But the challenge to you, and it'd be great, and thank you for those in the chat. Think about what a story a little bit like Matt's had of someone that's had that kind of flavour on you, because it'd be great to hear your stories as well. But Sharon,
Yes.
what do you? So, I mean, any from you? Any others? I mean, Matt's talked about a couple you already know, but yeah, that impact of flavouring a room, and I just love that concept. It's not something we particularly think about, but I mean, light is another fantastic metaphor of that, just like something that just changes the atmosphere in a room. I don't know whether you have also stories of that.
Yeah, there's one from last year when I was about to have an operation, and just before the operation, different members of my team came in to prod and poke and get me to sign away my life and that sort of thing. And then as soon as my anaesthetist walked into by my bed, I was like, "You're a woman of faith." I could just see it on her. There was something different about her. So she started talking to me, and I stopped her and just said, "Are you a woman of faith?" And she went, "Yes." I think her husband was a bishop, and she'd been praying with colleagues before work for miracles and stuff. And she was like, "Oh, how do you know?" And then she went, "Oh yeah, same spirit." And there was just something about her. I could sense the Holy Spirit in it. You could almost see it on her. And yeah, and she was just an amazing person to have for that situation, because before I went for the operation, she was singing worship songs. So like the whole room it just totally changed the atmosphere. Yeah. The one of the funny things about after the operation was the woman looking after me in the recovery room. When I came round, I said, "Oh, what's your name?" And she said, "Oh, it's Angel." I don't think she was actually a Christian, but it was that whole situation. It was like God wrapping me. Yeah. So that, I think, is a very powerful, obvious one where I could just tell instantly.
Yeah.
It's not it's not always like that. I
No,
think.
and the one that springs to mind for me is something, much more subtle. And as you say, it's kind of a whole range. I was on a team in my teens, and we had some problems to solve. We were on a building project. None of us really knew anything about building, but everyone had an opinion. And there was this one guy who was actually probably the most qualified of us. He was a little bit older, and he just used to keep quiet in the discussions. And he was just the humblest guy. Still a friend all these years later. He was just the humblest guy, and everyone would come in like, opinions, and everything would just begin to settle down, and then someone would ask and say, "Jeff, what do you think?" And he had the answer, but he wasn't shouting over everybody. And I love that picture of it bringing out of others, because actually just the way he approached that group dynamic and sharing the wisdom that he did have, it began to rub off on all of us. And we were like, and whenever I was with him, I felt challenged. It's like, I'm going to be a bit slower to speak. I'm just going to like listen a little bit more. be a little bit more humble, in my opinion. And I love that. And that, you have to say, that was somewhere in my heart. But it wasn't the most obvious thing, because we were all kind of fighting for attention in a sense. So yeah, it can be a big and a spiritual thing, or it can actually just be a personality thing as well. But I think God uses both.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's quite incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's the beautiful thing about all of this. I'm loving the comments, by the way. Can I just say, if you're on YouTube watching the live stream, do join in the comments. And before, there is one thing that came up that I just want to just sense check a little bit. So this idea that good and evil are complementary, right? That you can't have one without the other. I would disagree with. Now, I know for some of you, you might disagree with what I'm saying in the comments, but I appreciate this is something that's come up in the comments. I would say that evil is the absence of good.
Yeah.
Right? It's not complementary, just like darkness is what you get when there's no light.
Yes.
Right? You don't need darkness for light to exist, but we know that light overcomes the darkness, and we know that goodness overcomes evil. And I think when Jesus is talking about this being the salt, and let your light shine, it's like the world is dark, so let your light shine. And it's not just, me and my opinion. This is the light that God has given me, I suppose. It's letting the light of God shine through us, isn't it? Into these various things.
Yeah, so I think picking up on that, I just wanted to clarify as well who Jesus is talking to here when he says you are the light. Is he talking to all people everywhere, or is he specifically talking about a group of people?
Well, I would say, it depends how you want to answer that, doesn't it? Because we know that Jesus is talking to his followers. But we know that Jesus knew everybody before the foundation of the world, right? I knew you in your mother's womb. And I think there is a calling on every person. I think there is a purpose and a reason and a flavor, I suppose, if I use a salt analogy, that God has for everybody, right? I believe that with my whole heart. I don't think there's a specific group of people that God has ignored and just like, you're left to your own devices. I think there is room for everybody, and I think there's a calling and a flavor for everybody. But I think that flavor is received. So what do I mean by that? So, babe, there's my car keys. Can you just pass me my car keys? Awesome. So here are my car keys. Sharon's just passed them to me. Car keys are always there, right? And Sharon was giving me the car keys. You couldn't see it on the camera, but I still have to reach out and take it, right? You could hold these car keys and I go, can you give me the car keys? You're like, just take them. And we could argue all day long. You're trying to give me. And so I think when it comes to this flavor, this light that comes from God, I think we have to receive it. And I think that is where faith comes in. That's where the decision to be a Christ follower, like all the people that got baptized this weekend. That's them reaching out to God and receiving the plans and purposes that God has for them. So I think Jesus is talking specifically to his followers, but I think there is an inclusion there for everybody who wants to receive the flavor that God has for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So it is that Jesus is talking about his followers are the light of the world, but he wants everyone to be his follower.
Yes.
But not everyone currently is.
That's a much quicker and better way of saying 5 minutes.
No, it was good. What you said was great.
16 hours on the M5 talking there. One of the other things I hear in that, which I think is interesting, and I think, again, it is to his followers, is that Jesus' followers were not important people in the world's eyes. They were not people of status. They were not people of authority. They were working people, many of them overlooked by society. And Jesus was saying this incredible thing of like, you are the city on the hill. You are the light that should shine out. I don't think anyone ever said that to these people, probably. It's like, no, you're nothing. You're fishermen. You're a despised tax collector. You're, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
We don't know that much about all the disciples, but they were not people of big societal influence. And to be told that you are the ones that bring the flavor to the society that you're in is a huge challenge, but also a massive encouragement to all of us.
Yeah.
It's not about the the positional power that we have. The challenge is to all of us to flavour the room that we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
And that I love. And that can apply to all of us. But I think when we know Jesus and we're walking hand in hand with Jesus, it becomes a more urgent call, and I think a more powerful one as well, because we have the words of Christ living in us. It's literally the fragrance of Christ, as it says in the Bible.
Yeah.
I think for some people that could sound like oh no, I've got to, wherever I am, I've got to try and be this, like, and like have that sense of striving with it. But I think I don't get that sense from this. It's like you already are these things. And if you just receive, like Matt said, if you receive from me who you are and just live out of that, listen to my spirit and just go with the flow of the spirit, you will automatically do those things. But sometimes it's like we either don't listen to God, or we're not listening to him for who we are. So then we end up believing all these lies and other stuff, or whatever the world chucks at us. Like you might have grown up being told that you're worthless, so you believe that lie that you're worthless, or that you're not loved, or you're no good. But it's like God's saying, no, none of those things are true. If you listen to who I say you are, you're just, and let that flow, you're just going to do it automatically. But it's like taking that stop off, isn't it?
It is. But there's also that lie that says, I like what Caesar Kalinowski says. He calls it the do to be lie. I have to do this to be of someone importance, right? So the whole Western idea of success is almost built on this. I have to do this, and therefore I become successful. Right? So my identity follows what I do. And I get why you would think that. I just don't know if that really is the case. You know, I think you can either, like Jesus said, don't hide the light. You can hide away from, that call, from that purpose. Or you can go, well, if Jesus wants me to be the light, let me grab as many torches from places I probably shouldn't grab them. Be the biggest, brightest light I can be. It's not quite what Jesus is saying there either. I think there's, the two polar opposites, isn't there? And there is just that receiving and just that quiet confidence and that faith, which says, I believe this is where God's got me to be, and I'm going to walk in this. Rather than, Dan's awesome. I don't want to be Dan. Will's awesome. I don't want to be Will. I need to be me. And accepting that and receiving that, I think, is powerful.
And I think receiving who God says you are as well. And being secure that you are loved and not having to compete with anyone as well. It takes the pressure off of, like, I can enjoy someone else's gifts and who they are without thinking, oh, but I'm not like that. Maybe I should be like that.
And Jesus' command in this is interesting, isn't it? I think you sort of brought it out a bit in your talk. He doesn't say you are to become the light of the world. You are to shine out. And the command actually is do not hide the light that you already are, or do not allow that saltiness to kind of leach out. So he is very much speaking that truth and saying, you're already this. As you said, there's no striving. This is your identity. And we want to speak that to anyone that's watching this, that's thinking, who am I? I've got nothing. We want to speak that as Jesus' word to you. It's like, no, you are the light of the world. You are the salt that brings flavour to the room that you're in. Just don't hide it, or don't allow it to be hidden, or don't allow it to be squashed. And that's actually the command, which is slightly different, isn't it, from you must be this. It's like, don't hide who you are. Which is lovely. Any other questions coming through the chat, or comments, or stories? Who took me up on that challenge?
I can't see any on here, but
no.
John and Sarah are in the room. John and Sarah say, how's it?
Oh, great. Good to see you, John and Sarah.
There's some interesting conversations going on, Alicia and Sudan. I hope I'm mispronouncing your name, Sudan, maybe. Who says, faith is an illusion. God is to know, not to believe. Through this, we will move to perfection and what more humanity needs. But if we just believe in God, if we just believe in our God, they are multiple. I'm not quite sure what you mean, but I think that the idea is, I'm sorry, I'm just reading this. Say again.
But if we just believe in our God, but there are multiple,
Right. Okay. Then we've been more. But for instance, Buddha is silent about God, and that's the best example of a peaceful religion. I don't know actually if I would agree that Buddhism is the perfect example of a peaceful religion. I don't know if any religion is an example of a peaceful religion. But I do think I get what you're saying about faith, but I think here's the thing, right? I am married to Sharon, who you've met, and I believe that Sharon exists, obviously, and I want to know her and know her more. But the basis of our relationship has also got to be based on trust. So maybe substitute the word trust with faith. The reason we have a good relationship is I can believe her. I'm not checking her every 20 seconds. Who are you with? What did you say? Why did you say that? Who did you just look at? Why did you? Unless I have that trust, what kind of relationship are we going to have? And I would say that my walk with God is about getting to know him, right? Jesus said, my sheep know my voice. And so it's this whole idea that the more we walk with God, the more we get to know him. There's a wonderful verse in the New Testament where Paul, one of the writers of the New Testament, he says, for I know in part and I prophesy in part. But when he is revealed, all things will be revealed. And so there is this idea that we don't know everything, and that revelation, that understanding, that knowledge comes as we walk with him. But the foundation of that is we have to trust him, and we have to have that faith. And in fact, the Bible says without faith, it is impossible to please God. In Hebrews 11:6, I'm guessing, somewhere around there. So I think there's some really interesting elements to this, but I don't want to get too sidetracked, but hopefully that's helpful.
I just want to bring a slightly different angle on the bystander effect, actually. And it was John this weekend who told me some fascinating and quite amusing research, since we were going down to a very popular beach in Dorset to do these baptisms this weekend, and it filled up very, very quickly. And an early party went down to try and stake out a claim, and it quickly got kind of piled in. But anyway, John was telling me this bit of research where they, I think it was in Britain, went to a beach early. This kind of film crew, and it was exactly the same effect that you were talking about, and drew out this very large square on the beach, like a trench around it, and put a single deck chair in the middle, and a guy sits on the deck chair, and it's like, this is my space, this is my castle. And they videoed the whole day, and the only people that stepped into the square did it by mistake and apologized to the guy on the deck chair. The rest of the beach is absolutely packed, but no one came and said, can I just sit up here by you? Because it's like, okay, they've stated their claim. So a slightly different angle on what we're talking about being salt and light.
Yeah.
There's a real challenge to challenge what we see, and that's part of it, to call out the wrong flavors, to call out where actually there is darkness, and not just to kind of merge into what can be a sort of ridiculous bystander. I mean, that's a silly example. I'm not saying that's particularly weird, but we can all just go along a little bit like you, kind of pushing past those people on the escalator, and we do have a responsibility to call out when there is another flavor in the room, or where there is something that is squashing light, whether that be in an individual through an abusive relationship, or just the way they're talking, whether it be culturally, politically, whatever it is. We do have that responsibility to call out, and I think that's part of being the flavor, the light as well. Is to challenge and not just be caught up in the crowd of like, oh, it's a bit hard to go with that.
Yeah, I want to pick up on some comments, but first, I think one of the things I might remember from this evening is that tip on how to get a space on the beach.
And I bet you everybody on that beach. Here's the thing: I reckon everybody on that beach would have been really annoyed at that fella. They'd have been sitting there, right, under their breath, and this is what we do, especially the Brits. We sort of sit there and we'll complain about what somebody else is doing, but we won't do anything about it. Right?
See, I wonder whether people thought, oh, there's obviously a reason for that. Maybe something's going to happen.
It's exactly the same thing. It's that kind of bystander effect. Like, clearly there's something here I don't understand because no one else is going on the square. So I'm not going to be the one that breaks
Yeah.
down. I mean, for me, I always like to think and I've heard lots of examples of that. I'd like to think I was the person that would challenge it, but actually you don't really know until you've got that kind of crowd effect.
Yeah, you don't know, do you? I think
I've missed something. There was some announcement earlier on the day before I came.
I think I'll be the nosy person who went over and went, what's happening here today? Yeah. But anyway, a few comments. We've got Ellis who says, I think some people are just scared of being seen as odd or for standing out for the wrong reasons. I know I can relate to that personally.
Yeah.
I also can relate to that personally. I think we all can. I think we all got that same sense of, we don't want to be weird, do we?
Well, there's also a wisdom to this, right?
Yeah, there is.
So I think knowing what you believe is important and knowing what you think is important, but also knowing when to say something.
And
when
how
keep
to
your
say
mouth.
it.
Yeah. So I think there's wisdom there.
Yeah, definitely. He's also Ellis also follows on saying it can be difficult to be the person who mentions faith or the church, etc., when others don't. But of course, social difficulty doesn't really mean much, as we should be doing it, even if it's uncomfy. Yeah. Yeah. And like Matt's just said, it's the wisdom, isn't it? To know when to speak, when actually it's wise to be silent, and when it's not so much about speaking, but just maybe doing something different. Maybe
modeling something different.
Yeah, maybe if you've got someone at work who's just a bit lonely and sat by themselves and everybody's sort of talking about them a bit, to be the person to go and say hi or offer them a cup of tea, or just something really simple, but it's just can be quite subtle that, it's like, it just changes things a bit.
Yep.
Don't know if you've got any more examples of the very simple where God's just said, just go and do this, but it's not necessarily like overtly faith, but it's just that nudge of the Holy Spirit saying, I just want you to go and do this now. And it just sort of changes the atmosphere. I'm trying to think of one myself.
Oh, there's all kinds of things, isn't there? So like, I suppose the obvious one is always quite good fun to do this is when you're going through the drive-through, not that you, babe, would ever go through the drive-through. And of course, I never go through the drive-through. I'm just thinking about other people that went through the drive-through. Go through the drive-through and pay for the meal of the person behind you as well as yours and see what happens. I think little things like that, do you know what I mean? You're just being a bit of salt. And it's not like you need to leave a God told me to do this kind of card. You know, you need to go to church because I'm paying for your McDonald's. That's not what I'm saying at all. But there are so many ways, I think, that you can inject something of God's heart, right? Like I was walking past a restaurant that I like to eat at. And I saw a friend of mine in there. So I snuck into the restaurant, paid their meal, right? Just because I thought it'd be fun to do. And the only reason they found out about it is because I go in there all the time and they knew me and they said, Matt paid for it. I should have told him to keep it quiet. But things like that I think are just great fun, right? Or just, you know, when you're walking past a homeless person, rather than just walking past them and ignoring them, or rather than thinking to yourself, well, if I give them money, are they just going to go spend it on drugs? Just go into Greg's and buy them a sausage roll and give them the sausage roll, right? I mean, there's so many things that we can do, I think, just to inject something of the heart of God. And here's the thing, right? There was that thing years ago, wasn't there? The What Would Jesus Do campaign. And I think you can take anything, take any religious position, take any political divide, ask yourself the question, what would Jesus do? And I think more often than not, he would reach across the room and he would love the person in front of them into the kingdom. He would restore them, right? So rather than seeking to argue with people, a way to bring flavor is try and understand the person that's in front of you, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I go all night.
Yeah, no, I think the way we relate to people is probably one of the most powerful, and actually the way we talk about other people as well.
Yeah,
and sometimes it's the same thing. It's the same kind of crowd effect when someone starts to moan about something or moan about a person. Everyone else is like, I want to kind of fit in with this crowd, and suddenly everyone's moaning, and it could be as simple as just saying, I don't know, giving some context or giving a different perspective. And suddenly everyone flips around and go, oh yeah, no, oh, that might be good. Oh yeah, and they did that well. And and it can like, okay, you're very fickle in your views, but we are, aren't we? We all have these kind of opinions. And as soon as anyone talks, we're sort of agreeing with their opinion, unless you just absolutely love an argument and you will always disagree with anything. And then, you know, plenty of those people as well. But generally, we kind of build relationship by talking in agreement, and sometimes it's as simple as just bringing an alternative point of view.
Yeah.
And it's not, it doesn't have to
Very
be
gently.
confrontational.
Yeah.
It's just a loving point of view, or
Yeah.
just pointing out, or just saying,
Or just to
you know,
ask a question.
that's not a great thing to say about that particular situation or person. We have it all the time on our street WhatsApp. It's like, you just throw something into the street WhatsApp, and it's like, and you come back, it's like 38 messages about this thing, and everyone kind of piling on. And sometimes you just have to just put something in and say, actually, have you thought about this? And we go, oh yeah, oh no. And then, everyone's talking on that. It's a
Yeah.
very simple thing, but I think the way we relate to people is absolutely God's heart
Yeah.
and absolutely Christ's heart. And it's
Yeah.
a really powerful way to influence.
Catherine's put, I guess it's easy to mask in any situation, also in church community. So how do you tell who is authentic in that setting? Yeah, it is totally. Yeah, I think,
That's a great question, Catherine.
Really
yeah,
good question.
because church culture, although obviously it should be good if we are genuinely listening to God, but church is made up of people who are all different stages and have come through different things, and God's working on everybody differently. So sometimes church culture can be really tough, and it cannot be healthy. And then it can be easy to feel like you've got to conform to this unhealthy thing, even within church. So the question is, how do you tell who's being authentic?
Well, it's more than that, isn't it? Because I think when you're in church and you're hearing people's stories about how God's answered their prayer, or, you read verses in the Bible. We're having a conversation this morning, like, is it a sin to worry? Is that, is that a sin? And it's really interesting. You read some of these verses in the Bible and you kind of think, well, if you just take that out of context, not intentionally, but you kind of go, well, therefore I can't be seen to be worrying, right?
Yeah.
Or I can't be seen to be like, if I'm sick, well, surely God should heal me if I've got enough faith. So I can't be seen to be sick, or even talk about sickness in some circles, because if I do, the power of life and death is in the tongue, and I'm in deep trouble, right? So I think there is a pressure in the church to look like the good Christian. So to say the right thing, do the right thing, have God do the right thing, show that God's working in my life. And if you don't have the story or the testimony, that somebody's just shared, you feel like maybe you should. And so that's, I think, when you start to, I think there's a real pressure to mask because of that.
Yeah, there can be.
And I think, Jesus is he's quite simple on it. He says, judge the tree by its fruit. I mean, that's quite that's not always easy, but that is a way that you, like, if you want to test out whether something's authentic, well, look at the fruit of it, and does it align with what you understand as God's word and God's grace. But I think also, I think we can get a bit hung up about it. And for me, I'm not always too bothered about whether I need to. I'm a follower of Christ. I'm not a follower of anyone else's opinion particularly, and that kind of need to know whether someone's authentic or not. Partly it's none of my business, and you come across people and going, I'm not quite sure about that. You could pray for them. You could pray, God, help that person in whatever they're in. Sometimes it might be appropriate to challenge, or just to ask those questions, open up the discussion, and find out what they think. But I think we can get a little bit hung up as well about grading people as how authentic they are. And it's like, you can relate to people without necessarily having that clear in your head.
Yeah, I guess that becomes more of an issue if you're wanting to have a deeper relationship with somebody. Then it is important to discern, isn't it? And I think sometimes we can actually, like, God will give us that sense of discernment. Other times it shows itself over time in the things where they don't think they're being watched, and how they relate with people, behind the scenes. But that it does take time and a bit of discernment.
Taking people at face value, it can be a very godly and a very precious thing to do sometimes. Rather than being too hung up about are they real. And I mean, it really depends on the situation. That's the relationship and for what sort of influence they have in church.
And for people, I think I'm guessing, like, a lot of people who have genuinely been really hurt by that does become an important question, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. But I also think sometimes people mask because they don't know any other way.
Yeah.
Right. And what they need is permission to not do that. And so when you yourself are real and vulnerable and bring that salt, you change the flavor, and that gives permission for the other people to do that, right? So one of the greatest things to do, I think, is, I mean, I was talking about how, our friends who are really inspirational, they're not inspirational because whenever I see them, they're like, oh, got this great story of how God miraculously healed all these crazy conditions that are going on. I'm inspired because they're like, it's all nuts and it's horrible. But in spite of that, we're trusting God, and we're seeing God do stuff over here, and we know that God's got us to do this, and we're getting some real joy over there. That's inspirational, right? And so I think, don't worry so much about other people. Focus on you. Be that salt, and you'll be surprised, I guess, what impact that has on people around you.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for the chat and the conversation. Oh, Sharon's got a hand up.
Yeah,
Yes,
sorry. Ellis has put in one more question, which I think is important to answer before we finish.
Yeah.
If that was where you were going.
I was.
It was the person... So the important question is, was the person on the escalator okay in the end?
Was the person on the escalator okay in the end? To find out the answer to that, tune in next week.
You're so naughty sometimes.
All I can say is by the time I left, they were okay. Life was good.
They've not died.
Thank you, Ellis, for the compassion. The compassion in the chat.
I think lots of other people have been wondering that as well.
Just wondering what happened to that person.
Yeah. It's a half-finished story.
Which is fair enough.
They're great. The half-finished stories. Okay, thank you all very much for dialing in. I'm not entirely sure how we're doing Live Lounge at the moment, so but I think.
So shall I tell you?
Yeah, go on, Matt. Why don't you tell us how we're doing Live Lounge at the moment?
So Dan's already put in the comments the link. Go.crowd.church/meet is in the comments. So if you click that link, if you go to that link, it's a Google Meets room. So we'll be in there only for 10-15 minutes. Come and say hello. Come meet some people and just enjoy connecting, have a conversation. Alice, I just noticed said good in the comments. Yes, it is good. And can I hasten to add, it wasn't because I was some blindingly great medic. I just want to point that out as well. But it did all work out in the end. So come meet us in Live Lounge. Go.crowd.church/meet. Just click the link. It'll be great to meet you. It's just nice to connect with people. I know.
Be bold. Put a face to the name.
Yeah.
In the chat, and that's where the community builds. So
it is.
So come
and
on.
That's where we'll be.
We'll be doing live stream again next Sunday evening, and we're carrying on the Jesus the Revolutionary series.
Who's talking next week?
Who's talking? I'm talking next week, and the topic is all are welcome at the table, and it'll be.
I have no doubt. At least it better be.
So, Sharon, any final words?
I don't think so. No.
Matt, any final words?
Oh yeah, definitely.
He's going to do another preach now. You said that.
I'm not. I just want to refer to one comment. You can only believe in a personal being, but God is beyond space and time. I would say with the Christian faith that Jesus was a personal being and is a personal being. And that's how we get to know God. God incarnate, God Emmanuel, God with us. We believe fully that he was 100% God and 100% man. And the whole thing about Christianity is wrapped up into this idea that God came as a being, as a personal being that we could know. He died, he rose from the grave, and we can trust in him, and we get to be the salt and light of the earth, which is phenomenal. So I agree on the personal being. I would say and add to that, but God came as a personal being. So that's my lesson.
Amen. Thank you very much, man. That's a good wrap up. So have a fantastic week, and God bless you wherever you are and whenever you are watching this. Please do check out all the other resources on Crowd Church. There are hundreds of topics covered. Please do have a look. And if you are interested in finding out more and want to join an alpha, please do click on that link as well. All the information is on crowd.church. So, good night. Good to see you. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.